Hey, this is William Baxter.
And I'm Paul Bell.
And this is the William Baxter Experience here on YouTube. It's a little special episode of Retro Review Show. Today I was going to do a thing on for my brother and everything. It was going to be the giveaway that I've been talking about a few times. But in the past recent days and everything, this past Sunday, we found out that Wes Craven sadly passed away at the age of 76 due to brain cancer. He was born in 1939. His body of work, I mean, he almost 30
revolutionized horror.
Yeah, I mean, he almost almost 30 films to his credit as a director, writer, producer. Not to mention the stuff that he executive produced and stuff. But I figured this would be the best way to honor my brother, because normally I had to donate something to charity, but because today would have been my brother's 37th birthday. I figured we'd talk a little bit about Wes Craven, and those who are watching and everything, especially on Facebook page, my fan Facebook page. If you could, give a selfie of you doing this, because my brother and I were big Four Horsemen fans, and that's something we did, especially on his wedding day. We were all in Texas, and we were like, we got to do this, to do the Four Horsemen. One of these days, I'll probably show the picture.
You got to do it right while you're in a tux.
Yeah.
Profile,
But okay, this is that review, retro review show. So let's get it started. All right, retro review show, and we're going to talk about the late Wes Craven. We're going to highlight a few of his movies. We're not going to talk about all of them, but I'm going to throw off a list of all the movies that he directed. And of course, there was his first one, Last House on the Left, which came out in '72, which was also co-produced by Sean S. Cunningham, who co-created the Friday the 13th series. Yeah. That movie got remade back in 2009, yes, and that ended up being a really good remake. I mean, I highly recommend Last House on the Left, both versions. What do you remember about Last House? You've seen the original,
I
right?
saw the original, and it very much stuck in the same way the remake did. It pretty much stuck to the source material, which I really liked about it.
Revenge story.
Yeah, it just really helped out. The fact that it was a revenge story, out in the middle of nowhere kind of deal. You got these, I think they were, just criminals, fugitives that attacked, this girl, which it was just a really good story. It kind of made you feel like you weren't safe in your own home, you know, but at the same time, it was a great movie. And then, of course, the
2009 remake was, just as good and everything, because both Cunningham and Wes Craven had part in it, because the original Last House on the Left got bootlegged a lot in the 70s, and it was a pure, true grindhouse film. If you ever get this chance to see it, you'll also notice that you see like a lot of voiceover work done, and doesn't seem to match, because that's how a lot of low-budget movies were made back in the days. And another movie that he did was his second movie, and it was one of those really out there type of movies. It was The Hills Have Eyes.
It's like Deliverance on steroids.
Yeah. He actually did two of these movies. Back in '85, he did a sequel titled Hills Have Eyes Part 2, and in 2006 and 2007, there was remakes to those movies. I didn't see the second one. Didn't mind the remake as much. Yeah. But there was no way they could touch those original films. They were out there. I mean, really out there.
Well, I think part of it was the time in which it was released. They modernized it for the remakes a little bit, but I prefer the originals myself. Yeah. They just really stick with you more. Yeah. Than the remakes.
And then they didn't rely on too much like makeup like the other ones did. Where they had this one actor. He was a character actor, and he did kind of have a deformity or something with his head. Yeah. And he kind of looked spooky to begin with. I can't remember the guy's name, but if you watch The Hills Has Eyes, you'll see him. He's in both the original movies, but you'll notice that throughout the '80s and everything, he popped up in a lot of different movies. Star Trek 4, Weird Science, one of Eddie Murphy's Golden Child movie and everything. Like I said, just check those movies out. These are those are spooky. It makes you think twice about going off the road.
Yeah.
There's other things called Deadly Blessing, which was one of Sharon Stone's first credits in film. And then in '82 he did one of DC's properties, Swamp Thing, which really kind of was with the comic but didn't go with the comic at the same time. It wasn't that bad. I mean, the sequel sucked.
Bad.
I mean, if you ever seen Return of Swamp Thing in the TV show, you're gonna regret it. But Swamp Thing, you've seen the original Swamp Thing?
The original, yeah. I didn't read the comics of it, but the original Swamp Thing, it was good.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it a lot. You know, it was kind of reminiscent of the Creature of the Black Lagoon, but it stood apart. It was its own deal. I liked what they did with it.
Yeah. I said, I mean, if you're a fan of the Swamp Thing, I mean, it predated Alan Moore's run on Swamp Thing, which, of course, you know, Alan Moore, if you're a comic book fan, made that character what it is and revitalized the oddity of what DC Comics ended up having. Another one, 1984, is Invitation to Hell, and then in 1984, we got the glimpse of his true artistic ability and his masterpiece, if you ask me, which is the original Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think, you know, it got, when was it, the remake? It was several years ago.
The remake of it was A New Nightmare?
No, that was his last Nightmare movie.
I don't know when the remake.
I want to say it was like 2006 maybe, or 2009. But ignore the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah. But Nightmare on Elm Street, the original one, 1984, introduced us to Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger.
Oh, yeah. Johnny Depp was in it.
Yeah, Johnny Depp's first starring role, and he just, you know, it was just a wonderful piece. Of, we're going to go more deep into this movie as you know, the show goes on and everything when it comes to when we do the Nightmare on Elm Street review, retro review. But you know, that was definitely his masterpiece, and
almost
then
the crown jewel of his legacy.
Yeah.
I mean, you say Nightmare on Elm Street, you think Wes Craven.
Yeah.
You know, that synonymous with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And then in '94, you know, after he had done executive produce and co-wrote the screenplay to the third one, but he didn't have anything to do with the rest of the films until '94 when he did Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and he completely, you know, turned the series on its head. I mean, it was a different take, and it was kind of like an alternate reality where everything was kind of they're like living, everybody playing themselves.
Yeah.
Including Wes Craven and everything, but I said we'll get more deep into this movie in a future episode. But Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and when it comes, it's a perfect bookends for the series and everything. Nightmare on Elm Street and New Nightmare and everything. They were both very wonderful films, written and directed by Wes Craven. Serpent and the Rainbow, which was a movie based on voodoo.
Yeah.
Is supposed to have been, what I understand, inspired by a true story. But I don't think I've ever seen that one. I know my brother had and everything. My brother was, I said, anything that had Wes Craven, John Carpenter's name on it, and he jumped to it. One of my favorite movies was back in '89, was Shocker.
Yeah.
You know, a guy who was, I can't remember the character's name, but he ended up somehow learning how to harness electricity and everything, and when he got shocked into the electric chair and everything, he became part of electricity, and he was able to go through currents, and he was able to go in and out of TVs and radios and stuff like that. Your thoughts on that one? Do you remember it?
I remember bits and pieces of it. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I recall it being a very good film.
Yeah.
I mean, it gave you the thought that you were just on the edge of your seat waiting to see where he came from. You know?
And I like it when he was sitting on in the electric chair, and they asked him any more last words. He goes, "No more, Mr. Nice Guy."
Yeah.
And then him and the guy ended up being his son. They're bouncing through television sets and channels and everything. And I said, you got to see it. It's really it's campy and fun and horror at the same time. But I mean, sometimes you kind of scratch your head like, okay, what? But it was a good film nonetheless. It's one of my favorite Wes Craven films. People Under the Stairs, 1991. It was pretty much like this husband and wife, or father and, or mother and daughter, or husband and wife. They have these people they have as slaves or something like underneath their basement or something. I said it's been a long time since I've seen that movie. I've seen it maybe twice. It was very good that I can remember, but I mean, it's one of those nowadays. You know, you find out like there's people actually out there that have people in their cellars alive that are having these people as tortured house guests. I guess you can best way to describe it.
I guess that's about the only way you could describe it.
Yeah, I mean the house guests are not allowed to leave. It's out there and it makes you it's one of those thought provoking things like, boy, what would you do if you were in that situation or you find out that there's people...
it makes you want to check your neighbor's house.
Yeah. Vampire in Brooklyn, 1995. That's an Eddie Murphy movie.
Yeah,
not a lot of people...
That's what most people remember about it,
I mean, I forget that Wes Craven directed Vampire in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
It was kind of Eddie Murphy type of spectacle where he played multiple characters and he played this vampire who was going after Angela Bassett. I don't remember much of the movie. I didn't really care too much for it.
It was a hard movie to care for. I mean, it tried to walk the line between a like almost like a Blackula-esque kind of deal, and it kind of spoofed on itself is what it did.
Yeah, I mean, it should have been, I mean, I don't think Eddie Murphy was trying to make it too much of a comedy. I think he wanted it, because at that time he was trying to break away.
Cast members, you couldn't help but make it a comedy.
Yeah. I mean, I think around that time Eddie Murphy was trying to break away from comedy.
Yeah, the Wayans' father, what was his name? He was in it.
Yeah.
He was the landlord and ended up being the henchman, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of hard not to see it as a comedy when he's in it.
Yeah. But, it didn't do well in the box office. And then, but Wes Craven, he did find in late 95 and everything, there was a screenplay that had been jumping around, written by a wonderful writer called Kevin Williamson, and it was called Scary Movie. Now, this screenplay got optioned by the Weinstein brothers, Harvey and Bob Weinstein, and their Miramax Dimension Films companies. They were shopping it around to directors, and Wes Craven, who was there to talk a deal with the Weinstein brothers, just happened to see the screenplay, and he thoroughly liked what he read and everything. And as time went on, when this movie was being made, it turned into, the title of the movie got turned to Scream. So now we are into the legacy of Scream. This is the second time anybody had turned the horror genre around and made something new out of something old. Scream basically not only spoofed, but pointed out the little plot holes that horror films had, but it made fun of them, and yet this movie made you jump out of your seat again. I mean, this was another one of those whodunits.
It was one of those movies that not only did it poke fun at itself, but it really stood apart in the horror genre, especially Jamie Kennedy, his character mentioning the rules, which I think everybody who watches horror movies nowadays is at some point in time going to mention those rules.
Yep.
And it just was one of those movies that really stuck out there.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Great film.
But as I said, it also brought back the whodunit type of thing, And I mean, you were guessing.
The killer wasn't superhuman, he wasn't not human. He was a
and you didn't know who it was, and you were trying to figure out, okay, could that be him? No, can't be him. Just killed him off, and it was one of those wonderful things. And then you find out it's the boyfriend this whole time, and the boyfriend's best friend and everything. And
spoiler alert, by the way.
Yeah. But, and again, he did it a year later, Scream 2. It made you wonder, like, okay, I always was wondering, like, how in the world are they going to do a Scream 2? They just killed the killer. I mean, and then again, spoiler alert, they did the reverse thing and ended up being the mother who comes back and gets revenge on the son's death, and that was
her partner, the college girl.
Yeah.
I like that they did move it from high school to a college.
Yeah. And then 2000, they at the time we thought they were rounding off the series. They were saying all trilogies must come to an end or something like that with the Scream 3, and that was back in 2000. and you thought that was it, and then 10 years later they did Scream 4. They weren't, Scream 3 and 4 weren't as good.
They were interesting. I mean, in Scream 3 they took it to a movie studio, you know, kind of gave you a little bit more of an origin of the main character, Sidney Prescott's mother, you know, which turns out to be a big plot point in the original 3. You know, it was interesting to see.
You find out, spoiler alert, find out that she had a long lost brother who orchestrated everything from the first film to teach the, you know, tell the boyfriend, that Sidney's boyfriend and everything, that what was going on, which made him flip his lid and want to, you know, set up the whole plot line of Scream 1 and everything. So it kind of comes full circle. And then Scream 4 comes out in 2011. I just didn't care too much for it. I thought by then it was kind of, you know, the series was pretty much done.
It was more for the newer generation, you know. It had a lot of, you know, more modern mentionings, you know, followings like, you know, Twitter pages and whatnot. You know, the kid with the camera strapped to his head for the point of view, what are they, vlogs, if they're on video,
But, and then in 1999, Wes Craven did something out of his element. He went and did a drama called Music of the Heart, which it starred Meryl Streep and also gave her another one of many Oscar nominations this actress has had, and rightfully so and everything. It was his way of getting out of the horror genre, which he had tried to a few times before. And, you know, this is one of those little pieces and everything that, you know, like, hey, look, you know, he did...
He showed you any broader talent for directing, you know.
And he was a great director.
Oh, yeah.
He did, 2005, did Cursed, and Red Eye, and in 2006 he did a foreign film, which I don't want to break my tongue trying to...
Something About Paris.
Yeah. And then his final film, My Soul to Take, which came out in 2010. It said almost 30 films within a 40-year span, which is not bad. Most directors, you know, wasn't... you know, a lot of directors don't get that many, unless you're Steven Spielberg that has a project once a year. But I think
he's on director speed dial.
Yeah, but again, Wes Craven, never going to be forgotten. His style of filmmaking is going to be forever seen and heard or felt whenever you watch future horror films. He was truly a master of suspense. He was, as I said, brought some iconic characters to filmmaking altogether. Freddy Krueger, Ghostface. I'm going to hate to say this. I mean, I was always hoping that, you know, he'd go back to the Nightmare on Elm Street series and do a prequel or something.
That would have been cool. I'd like to have seen that.
But I know right now he was executive producing Scream, the television show on MTV. But as I said, he was one of my and my brother's favorite filmmakers, and he'll never be forgotten. He's just one of the best, and I said, this is one of the best ways I can honor my brother on his birthday, is by honoring the master, Wes Craven. Rest in peace, Wes. We will miss you, but we always have your films. As I said, you know, the highlight, Last House on the Left, the original and the remake. Hills Have Eyes, Part 1 and 2.
Of course, the Scream series.
The Scream series, Swamp Thing. Take a look at that. Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and New Nightmare, which is Nightmare on Elm Street 7. People on the Stairs, Shocker, and Music of the Heart. Those are the ones that, and Serpent in the Rainbow, I will highlight as the ones that you really need to watch. And hopefully next week we'll be starting up the giveaway. As I said, I delayed that to do this, and don't forget to throw this out to everybody on the Facebook fan page and my Facebook fan, and if you want to on Paul's page and everything. This right here is in memory of my brother, Four Horsemen. Today would have been my brother's 37th birthday. Love you, Sean. I will always miss you, and this one was for you.